I fell in love with a man I'd never met. He was sweet, kind, everything I dreamed of. But when I finally saw his face, he was my coworker's husband. I still remember the night it started. Rain tapping against my apartment window, laptop glow washing over my tired face. I'd just finished another long day at work, another day of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I'd been feeling invisible, caught between deadlines and dull meetings like my life was on repeat. Then a notification popped up, a message from someone named Evan M89. At first I ignored it. I wasn't looking for anyone, but curiosity has a funny way of slipping past reason. I clicked, just to see. He'd written, "You seem like the kind of person who sees things others miss." I don't know why, but that line hit me. It wasn't like the usual cheesy opener. It felt thoughtful, almost gentle. I typed back a short reply, not expecting much, but then he answered again, and again. Soon we were talking about everything: music, books, the weird comfort of midnight walks. He told me he worked in marketing, that he was single, and that he'd moved to the city recently. I found myself laughing, actually laughing, in a way I hadn't in months. Every evening after work, I'd rush home, grab tea, and open our chat. His messages became my safe place. I told him about my mom's health scare, my fear of being stuck in the same job forever, the loneliness I never admitted to anyone. He always knew what to say. He made me feel seen. And yet, something about him felt mysterious. I'd asked for a video call, but he said his camera was broken. When I suggested meeting, he said he was traveling for work. He sent photos, a kind face, deep eyes, a soft smile. I stared at those pictures more times than I'd like to admit. He didn't just make me feel loved, he made me feel alive. Then one afternoon at work, everything shifted. I was in the break room making coffee when my coworker, Lisa, walked in. She was scrolling through her phone, smiling at something. I glanced over, half curious, and froze. The photo on her screen? It was him, Evan. The same smile, the same eyes, the same man whose messages I'd fallen asleep reading every night for the last 2 months. But Lisa wasn't just looking at a picture. She was showing it off. She said, "My husband surprised me with breakfast in bed this morning. He's such a sweetheart." I felt my stomach twist. My fingers went cold. My ears started ringing. I must have smiled or said something polite, but I don't remember what. I only remember the weight in my chest as the truth hit me. The man I'd fallen for wasn't just a liar. He was my coworker's husband. And worse, he was still texting me. What would you do if you discovered the person you've been falling for online was already married and you worked with their spouse every day? That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone kept lighting up with his messages. Little hearts, little jokes, little moments that used to make me smile but now made my skin crawl. I kept staring at his words, trying to see them the way I used to, but every line felt poisoned. He said, "I miss you tonight." And all I could see was Lisa's smile in the break room, showing off her husband, the same man who had been whispering sweet things to me in the dark. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Maybe he just looked like her husband. Maybe it wasn't him, but the thought wouldn't leave me, so I did what I promised myself I'd never do. I opened his photos again and started comparing. Lisa had posted a few pictures of her husband on Instagram. Their anniversary dinner, their weekend trip upstate, one photo of him hugging her near a lake, his face turned slightly away, the same light brown hair, the same jawline, the same small scar near his eyebrow. I zoomed in, heart pounding it, matched perfectly. It was him. The man I'd been talking to for 2 months was Lisa's husband. Mark, not Evan from some random dating app, not the lonely marketer who said he couldn't find real connection in the city, but a man who went home every night to a wife who sat 10 feet away from me in the office every day. My hands were shaking. I felt sick. I wanted to throw my phone across the room and scream, but I didn't. Instead, I went silent. I stopped replying. I watched his messages pile up unread for days. He wrote things like, "Are you okay? Did I say something wrong? Please just tell me what's going on." He had no idea I knew. Every morning at work, I'd see Lisa humming to herself with that same cheerful glow. She'd talk about how her husband had made her coffee or sent her flowers at lunch. And I would just sit there pretending I didn't know, pretending my heart wasn't breaking, pretending I wasn't about to explode. And then, one evening after work, as I was packing my bag, Lisa came up to me smiling. She said, "Hey, you should come over this weekend. We're having a small dinner get-together. Mark's been dying to meet the people I work with." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened. My fingers went numb. The world blurred around me. She wanted me to come to her home, to meet her husband, the man who'd been telling me he loved me. I forced a smile and said, "Sure, maybe I'll stop by." That night, I stared at my phone again, and for the first time, I typed back, "Hi, Evan?" Or should I say Mark? He didn't reply for an hour. Then finally, "You don't understand, please let me explain." But I already did. Would you confront him directly like she did? Or stay quiet and let him expose himself later? I stared at his message for a long time. "You don't understand, please let me explain." It kept blinking on my screen like it had the power to undo everything, but nothing he could say would make what he did. Okay, still some part of me wanted to hear him out. Maybe because I needed closure, or maybe because I was too stunned to let go so soon. I typed slowly, "Explain then." He replied almost instantly, "It's not what you think. Please don't tell Lisa I never meant to hurt you. I don't know how to stop." My pulse quickened. What did that even mean? I asked. Stop what? Lying or cheating? He didn't answer for hours. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling that strange mix of anger and sadness and shame wash over me. He had made me believe in something real, and now I felt foolish for ever letting my guard down. The next day at work, Lisa greeted me with her usual smile and said, "So Saturday at 7, okay? Mark's grilling, we're making sangria." Every instinct told me to stay away, but curiosity whispered louder. What if I went? What if I looked him in the eyes and watched him squirm? What if I made him face what he did? So I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll be there." All day I could barely focus. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was him telling me not to come, telling me something to make sense of it, but he didn't text. Not once. Saturday came faster than I expected. I spent hours deciding what to wear. Not because I wanted to impress him, but because I wanted to look calm, composed, untouchable, like the woman who didn't fall for lies. Lisa's apartment was warm, cozy, the kind of place filled with laughter and scented candles. She opened the door beaming. "You made it," she said, pulling me into a hug. And then I saw him. He was standing by the counter pouring wine, the same face, the same smile. The man from my messages now wearing a plain white shirt like he had nothing to hide. Our eyes met for just a second, long enough for his smile to falter just slightly before he looked away. Lisa turned toward him. "Babe, this is my coworker I was telling you about." He extended his hand calmly like we were strangers. "Nice to finally meet you," he said. Voice steady, but his eyes begged, "Please don't say anything." I shook his hand and smiled. "Nice to meet you too, Evan." He froze just for a fraction of a second. Lisa didn't notice she was busy setting plates and talking about the food, but I saw it, the panic behind his eyes, the guilt hiding under that polite grin. Dinner was a blur, laughter, chatter, the smell of grilled food, but beneath it all was tension, sharp and invisible. Stretching between us every time our eyes met, it felt like a silent storm building. And as I took another sip of sangria, I made a decision I wasn't going to expose him tonight. Not yet. I wanted him to live in fear of when I would. Would you have confronted him right there at dinner? Or waited to make him sweat like she did? That dinner felt like walking through fire while pretending not to burn. Lisa kept talking, laughing, refilling everyone's glasses, while Mark and I sat across from each other, locked in this quiet battle of glances and unspoken words. He looked calm on the outside, but I could see the way his jaw tightened. Every time I smiled back at him, I didn't say a thing. I just listened to him lie in real time. He talked about his work, his travels, his love for his wife. It was like watching a play where I already knew the ending and every line made me sicker. When dessert came, Lisa left the table to grab more whipped cream from the kitchen the moment she disappeared. His voice dropped low. "Please don't do this here," he said, his tone desperate but soft. "I made a mistake. I didn't plan it. I just needed someone to talk to." I looked at him and whispered, "You lie to me every single day. That's not a mistake." "Mark, that's a choice." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. I love my wife, but things have been distant and you made me feel seen again." Those words used to make me melt. Now they made my skin crawl. I wanted to laugh at the irony. He used the same words that hooked me the first night. "You seem like the kind of person who sees things others miss." I leaned closer and said, "I see you clearly now, Mark. And trust me, you don't look so special anymore." Before he could answer, Lisa came back, setting the bowl down, all smiles. "You guys are so quiet. Are you getting along?" I forced a grin. "Perfectly," I said. "Your husband's just full of surprises." She laughed, not realizing how true that was. When I finally left that night, the air outside felt heavy. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was something deeper, something dark that had settled in my chest. He had made me feel guilty for his lies, and that made me furious. Over the next few days, I played along. I smiled at Lisa, at work, made small talk with Mark during their calls that sometimes she put on speaker. I wanted him to feel it, to know that every second of normal life was borrowed time. Then one afternoon, I left a little note on his desk. It was just one sentence written neatly in blue ink. "How does it feel to live two lives?" When he found it, his face went pale. He looked up quickly, scanning the room, but I was already gone. That night, he sent another message. "Please stop. You're going to ruin everything." I smiled to myself and typed back, "That's the point, Mark." Because if he could lie so easily, then he deserved to feel what it's like to lose control one secret at a time. And I was just getting started. Would you keep playing the silent game like she did? Or would you expose him immediately to his wife? By the next week, the game had already begun to eat at him. I could see it in the way his smile faltered in the hallway, the way his eyes darted toward me when Lisa wasn't looking, the way his hands shook slightly when he carried coffee into the meeting room. He looked like a man trying to hold his life together with shaking fingers, and I'll admit, a part of me liked watching him squirm because every nervous glance was proof that the truth was heavier on his chest than it ever was on mine. Lisa stayed the same, cheerful, bright, always talking about how lucky she was, how her husband had been more attentive lately, how he'd started leaving her little notes before work. I'd nod and smile, but inside I wondered if those notes were his way of trying to fix the cracks before everything fell apart. That Friday, we had a team lunch at a small cafe near the office. Everyone went except Mark. But halfway through our meal, Lisa's phone buzzed. She smiled at her screen and said, "Mark's asking what we want for dinner tonight. He's been sweet lately." Almost like when we first met. I bit my tongue. The words I wanted to say burned like fire. Of course he's being sweet. He's terrified. But instead, I took a sip of my drink and said, "That's nice. He sounds like a great guy." When I got home that evening, my phone lit up again, a message from him. "You've made your point. Please just stop. I can't keep pretending." I typed back slowly, "Then tell her the truth." There was a long pause before he replied, "I will, but not now. She's been through a lot. She doesn't deserve this." I laughed bitterly, staring at the screen. Neither did I. He didn't answer again. But the next morning, Lisa came in quieter than usual. Her eyes red, like she'd been crying. She still smiled, but it was smaller. More forced. She said she was fine, but something in her tone told me she wasn't. Later that day, I overheard two coworkers whispering near the coffee machine. Apparently, Lisa and Mark had a fight last night. He left the house for a few hours. My chest tightened. I hadn't expected the cracks to show this soon. Part of me wanted to stop the other part, wanted to see how far he'd fall before he hit bottom. That evening, he texted again. "You don't understand what this is doing to her. I'm begging you, please don't destroy her to punish me." I stared at that message for a long time and realized something. I wasn't sure anymore if I wanted revenge or justice. Maybe I just wanted him to feel the same confusion and betrayal he'd left me with. But life has a cruel way of twisting intentions because by the next week, everything took a turn I didn't see coming. Do you think she should stop now before it goes too far? Or keep pushing until he confesses everything? By Monday, the tension was thick enough to taste the whole office felt quieter than usual. People whispered more, looked over shoulders more. Even Lisa seemed distant, her usual bright laugh gone, replaced by something brittle. She smiled when spoken to, but her eyes had that glassy sheen that comes after too many sleepless nights. And Mark, he looked like a shadow of himself, tired, pale, always on edge. I could feel him watching me like I was holding a ticking bomb. And maybe I didn't plan to push him further, not really, but when you've been hurt this deeply, sometimes anger drives you more than logic. So I came up with a plan, a small trap, nothing dramatic, but just enough to make him trip over his lies. That night, I texted him again. If you're serious about being honest, then meet me tomorrow noon, cafe on 6th. He replied almost instantly. Why? Please don't make this worse. Because you owe me the truth, I wrote, and you owe her honesty. He didn't reply, but the next day at exactly 12:15, I saw him walk into that cafe, looking around nervously until his eyes found mine. He sat down across from me, shoulders tense, hands clasped so tight they were turning red. He said quietly, "You shouldn't have texted me again." I leaned in. "You shouldn't have lied to me in the first place." He exhaled hard. "I messed up, okay? I got caught up in something stupid. You were just easy to talk to. It wasn't supposed to go this far." I laughed softly. "So I was your emotional hobby." He flinched. "It wasn't like that. I didn't mean to hurt you, I swear." I took out my phone, opened our chat history, and slid it across the table. "Then explain all this. What part of this was innocent? The good mornings? The I love yous? The plans for when we'd meet in person?" He stared at the screen for a long moment before whispering, "I was lonely." That broke something in me. Loneliness, I understood that word too well. But what he did wasn't just loneliness, it was cowardice. I said quietly, "You don't get to use loneliness as an excuse for betrayal." He looked up, panic flashing in his eyes. "Please don't tell Lisa she'll leave me." I stared at him, then said softly, "Maybe she deserves the chance to decide that for herself." And then I stood up, left some money on the table, and walked out before he could say another word. I didn't look back, but as I stepped into the sunlight, my heart raced because I knew I wasn't done yet. There was one last thing I needed to do, something that would make sure he could never hide again. The next day, I printed every message, every picture, every proof, and slipped it inside a plain brown envelope. And on Friday, I placed that envelope neatly inside Lisa's desk drawer before she came in. Then I walked away. Would you have done the same, left the truth for her to find, or confronted her directly? Friday mornings at the office always had a lazy hum of weekend energy. People chatted more freely, deadlines loosened a little, and even the coffee tasted lighter. But that day, everything felt like the air was holding its breath. Lisa arrived a bit late, a paper cup in hand, her smile returning faintly as if she was trying to pull herself back to normal. She dropped her bag on the desk, tucked her hair behind her ear, and began her usual routine, powering up her laptop, sorting through files, humming under her breath. Then she saw it, the brown envelope. At first, she looked confused, maybe thinking it was a client document or a new proposal. But when she opened it, everything changed. I wasn't watching directly. I was across the room, pretending to check emails. But I didn't need to. I felt it. The silence that fell around her, the soft gasp that escaped her lips, the way her hand froze mid-turn of a page. For a moment, nobody noticed. But then she stood up, slowly, shakily, clutching those printed pages. Her voice trembled when she said, "Mark, can we talk?" The entire office went quiet. Mark looked up from his desk, his face draining of color. He saw the papers in her hand, and he knew. She didn't wait for him to answer. She just walked toward the conference room, every step echoing like a countdown. Mark followed, trying to smile, trying to whisper something, but she didn't even turn around. The glass doors closed behind them. What happened inside, I could only imagine. Muffled voices, anger, hurt, betrayal. At one point, Lisa's voice broke through, sharp and trembling. "How long were you going to make a fool out of me?" No one in the office dared to move. Even the printer stopped midway through a job, beeping quietly in the silence. When the door finally opened, Mark came out first. His face looked hollow, his tie askew, eyes red but not from crying, more from realizing it was over. He grabbed his jacket, muttered something to HR, and left without looking at anyone. Lisa followed a few minutes later. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she just walked back to her desk, sat down, and deleted something from her computer. Then she leaned back in her chair and whispered, almost to herself, "Thank you, whoever you are." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because in that moment, I realized she knew. Somehow she knew it was me. Later that day, she stopped by my desk. Her tone was calm. Too calm. "You were close to him, right?" she asked quietly. I nodded, unsure if she wanted the truth or a lie. She studied my face, her eyes soft but heavy. "He told me everything." My throat went dry. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You didn't destroy my relationship. You saved me from wasting more years on someone who already checked out." And then she smiled. A small, tired, real smile. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my phone, at all the messages, the confessions, the words that once made me blush and now just made me ache. I selected everything and hit delete. Because sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about freeing yourself from the weight they left behind. Would you have revealed the truth anonymously like she did? Or faced both of them directly? The office felt different after that day. Lighter somehow, but also heavier. People whispered in corners, glanced at Lisa when they thought she wasn't looking, and avoided saying Mark's name out loud. It was as if everyone was scared of the ghost he left behind. And me? I was caught between guilt and relief. Guilt because I had played a part in destroying someone's marriage. Relief because I had also freed a woman from a lie. For a few days, I avoided Lisa completely. I'd come in early, leave late, bury myself in work. Anything to keep from meeting her eyes, but she noticed. Of course she did. On Wednesday, she walked up to my desk again. Her steps were slow, careful, like she was carrying invisible weight. "Hey," she said softly, "can we talk?" We stepped out to the small balcony overlooking the street. The wind carried faint sounds of traffic and the smell of rain. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just stood there looking down at the people walking by. Then she turned to me. I know you were the one who left that envelope, she said quietly. You don't have to admit it. I just know I froze. My hands went cold, but before I could speak, she continued. At first, I was angry. I thought, how dare someone interfere in my marriage? But then I read his messages again, the way he talked to you, the lies he told me, the lies he told you. She gave a bitter laugh, and I realized you weren't the villain. He was. Her eyes softened. You were just another woman he fooled. I didn't expect forgiveness. I didn't even deserve it. But the way she said it, it was like she'd already made peace with it. She went on. I left him, filed the papers, told HR to transfer me to another branch. I need a new start. I nodded, my throat tight. Lisa, I'm sorry. I really am. I never meant for it to go that far. She smiled faintly. I know. And that's what makes it sadder, isn't it? None of us meant for this to happen. There was a long silence between us, filled with everything we didn't say. Before leaving, she placed a hand on my shoulder. Don't let this make you bitter, she said softly. You loved someone who lied to you. That's not your fault, but don't let that lie define how you love again. Then she walked away, her heels echoing softly against the wet concrete. That night, I went home and opened my old chat app, the one where it all began. The glowing green dot next to his fake name stared back at me. I scrolled through months of conversations, through every sweet lie he'd told, every promise that meant nothing, and then I pressed delete. For the first time, the screen went quiet. No messages, no apologies, no illusions, just me. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. Do you think Lisa was right to forgive her coworker, or would you have confronted her differently? The first week after everything settled, I felt like a ghost walking through my own life. The office was quieter now, Mark gone, Lisa transferred, and the coffee machine humming like a soft heartbeat in the background. Yet, for all the calm, I couldn't stop replaying every message, every lie, every stolen moment I had thought was real. I knew I needed to reclaim myself before I could trust anyone again. I started small. Mornings became mine. I drank coffee on the balcony instead of scrolling through my phone. I signed up for yoga classes I'd been putting off, just to feel my body move without stress, without waiting for a text. I picked up painting again, something I hadn't touched since college. Each stroke of color on canvas reminded me I still had control over something in my life. Friends noticed the change. They asked me to brunch, invited me to movies, and slowly I allowed myself to laugh without guilt, without fear of being manipulated. And then, one rainy evening, I sat in a cafe, journaling like I had every day. My notebook was full of thoughts, but one stood out. I am not broken. I am wiser. A man at the next table smiled at me briefly, the kind of smile that is curious but harmless. For a second, my heart jumped. Old instincts flickered, that desire to be seen, to be chosen, to fall in love again. But I didn't panic. I just smiled back gently, returned to my notebook, and wrote, I will let love find me when it's ready. It was strange to realize I hadn't needed him at all. Not Mark, not Evan, not anyone pretending to be someone else. I needed me, so work became easier too. Lisa and I had occasional check-ins, polite emails about projects, nothing personal. She'd smiled once across the office and waved, and I waved back, feeling no resentment, only relief that she was free too. I also took time to reflect on what had drawn me in, the loneliness, the desire for validation, the longing to feel connected. Recognizing it didn't erase the pain, but it gave me tools to protect myself in the future. I promised myself I wouldn't ignore red flags again. By the end of the month, I felt stronger. I was no longer the girl who fell for an online fantasy. I was the woman who survived deception and chose to grow from it. Every message I had deleted, every tear I had shed, every quiet moment of panic, it all had led me here. And as I closed my journal that night, I realized something important. I had regained control of my story. Not just my love life, but my life itself. For the first time in months, I slept without the weight of someone else's lies pressing down. How would you rebuild trust in yourself after being betrayed by someone you loved? Months passed, and life slowly stitched itself back together in threads I hadn't realized I was capable of weaving. The office felt lighter without Mark, without the tension that had hung over every hallway and every meeting. Lisa had settled into her new branch, sending occasional emails and even a card on my birthday, signed simply, for someone strong enough to face the truth. I had learned that strength wasn't about holding back tears or pretending to be fine. It was about choosing yourself, standing up quietly but firmly, and letting go of what you cannot control. I started dating again, cautiously, but with awareness. Every laugh shared, every small touch, every heartfelt conversation felt earned because I was no longer desperate for affection. I was ready to receive it from someone genuine. One evening, I met a friend for coffee in that same little cafe I had written in after everything. A man smiled at me again, the briefest flash of curiosity. I smiled back, not with longing, but with calm curiosity. I realized I could feel hope without needing it to heal me. I could enjoy company without letting someone else dictate my happiness. I also took time to forgive, not him, not Mark, but myself for trusting, for hoping, for falling. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing the pain. It was about freeing myself from carrying it forever. I let the past settle like sediment in water, visible but no longer suffocating. On a quiet weekend, I found myself scrolling through old messages one last time, the screenshots I had saved and then deleted. I paused, took a deep breath, and smiled softly. They were ghosts now, memories that could no longer hurt me. And in that moment, I understood something vital. Betrayal had tried to define me, but I had chosen the ending of my own story. I had turned heartbreak into wisdom, deception into clarity, and pain into power. The woman staring back at me in the mirror was the same one who had once cried over someone who wasn't real, but she was stronger now. She didn't need validation from messages or hidden faces. She didn't need apologies from someone who refused to change. She only needed herself. And that was more than enough. As I closed the bathroom door and walked into my living room, sunlight streamed in through the windows. I sat down, opened my journal, and wrote a single sentence. I am free, I am whole, and I am ready for what comes next. For the first time in a long time, I felt it, the quiet, steady heartbeat of a life rebuilt on truth, courage, and self-love. And I knew, no matter what happened in the future, I would always remember this. I survived betrayal. I reclaimed my story, and nothing could take that away from me. If you had been in her shoes, would you have been able to move on so gracefully, or would the betrayal have left you bitter?